Hello, I'm Levi. Let's return to our top story. And the UK government says Russian accusations against 6 British diplomats in Moscow are completely baseless. The group was expelled by the Kremlin, which accused them of spying and sabotage. Russia says London engaged in multiple unfriendly acts and that the actions of the British embassy in Moscow aim to cause harm to the Russian people. Well, their expulsion comes on the day that Britain's Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is due to meet President Joe Biden at the White House in Washington. Well, let's speak to Andrew Levi, who joins us from Edinburgh. Andrew is a former British diplomat to Russia who was expelled from Moscow in 2007. Welcome to BBC News. First of all, I'd like to get your reaction to the news of these expulsions.
Hello, thank you for having me on. I think the signal is being sent by the Russian authorities that they are concerned about the missile issue, which is under discussion in Washington, as you just said. As I understand it from press reports, these expulsions took place several months ago. So publicising it now is no coincidence.
You yourself were expelled when you were a diplomat. That was back in 2007. I understand it was you and 3 others. When we hear about diplomats being expelled, we don't actually kind of know what exactly happens in that moment. So given that you have first-hand experience, just share a little bit more about what happened and what reasons you were given.
We understood what was going to happen, not necessarily to me, because, as you may recall, in the autumn of 2006, Alexander Litvinenko had been assassinated, murdered, with a radiological weapon in the centre of London by Russian military intelligence agents. And after a lot of consideration, the British government decided to expel 4 Russian intelligence officers, one of whom was very senior, from London, who'd been working under diplomatic cover and been involved in that event. And the Russians then, in the usual sort of way of tit for tat, expelled 4 British officials. I was one of those. These were circumstances where normally you don't name the people. My name came out for reasons which are unclear. And on the personal level, as it happened at that time, we were given 10 days to pack up and leave.
And we see that Sir Keir Starmer is due to meet President Biden to discuss the issue of Ukraine in a few hours from now. Of course, much speculation that that could end up seeing Western missiles being allowed to be used by Ukraine directly on Russian targets inside Russia. What do you think, as someone who's obviously been a former British diplomat to Russia, some of the calculations will be made by Sir Keir Starmer at the moment, given that we heard from President Vladimir Putin saying that if it does go ahead, it could mean effectively that NATO countries are directly fighting Russia?
Well, it's interesting that President Putin says that. He's been saying for a long time that NATO is at war with Russia. His proxies have been saying it in Russian media shows, I think, for at least 18 months. He made a big thing of it at the time of in Russian, what we refer to as the full invasion of Ukraine back in February 2022. And so he's also made, as you know, nuclear threats along the way. So in one way, this is more of the same. In another way, I would expect, because there is a qualitative difference here about being able to strike the Russian bases inside Russia, that he's more worried and he will quite possibly escalate what we refer to as hybrid warfare, this sort of activities, whether they're cyber, whether they're assassinations, whether they're sabotage, which have been going on for quite a long time. In fact, more or less ever since Putin came to power. He might intensify those.
OK, Andrew Levi, thank you very much for sharing your personal thoughts and your analysis on today's developments.